And we are live on the Voice of the Cape Facebook and YouTube platforms for today's VOC Matric Revision session. The lesson is on mathematical literacy, and the topic is measurements and conversions. Our facilitator for today is Imaad Isaacs. He is the founder as well as an educator at the Futures Academy, SA's online high school. And Assalamu alaikum, Imaad.
Walaikum salam, Qanita.
And also welcome to today's session. And we are looking forward to following the lesson today. We also welcome our viewers to please like and share the lesson and the videos on our Facebook as well as YouTube. So do spread the word and share it with those who can benefit. So without further delay, I hand over to you to proceed.
Okay, shukran so much, Qanita. Thank you very much for that. Yes, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen and fellow students. I do believe that if people are commenting on the live stream, so it's going to show also here on the chat, so please feel free to do so as we go through the lesson. As Qanita has mentioned, today is all about mathematical literacy. We're tackling the topic of measurements and, or rather measurement and conversions. And yes, so quite interesting. I'm actually the maths and physics head of department at Futures Academy, and not the maths literacy head, but I just fell in love with the subject last week. And for many years, I've also been encouraging students to take mathematical literacy. Unfortunately, with the Department of Education, it's a little bit different from the IEB in that, you can obviously only do maths or math literacy. But with the independent boards, they actually allow you to take both mathematics and mathematical literacy. But nevertheless, students, this is an interesting subject due to its practical applications. And that's what I love about it, right? Sometimes our pure math students don't even see the practical implications when they are in the shopping mall or need to do basic calculations, right? But they should be able to do that. The great thing with this subject, on the other hand, is the fact that you are exposed to those applications. Okay. And then another big thing, what many people don't know, and that's what made me quite excited to also just do the session today, is that there are so many qualifications registered in our country on the National Qualifications Framework that you can study, but there's only a few hundred of them, probably around 200 to 300 of those qualifications that you can do post-matric that require pure mathematics. Out of the other, the remainder of the 8,000 registered qualifications, you can actually go and study a lot further with just mathematical literacy as well. So I just wanted to put that out there before we actually go into the topic. Okay. And then today's section, once again, conversions under the topic of measurement. Now, the reason we are focusing on this, and although the content may seem basic to many, many students, the reality is that students still make mistakes with these basic conversions. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to move into it, and we're going to go straight into the very basics and tackle this again, right? So from grade 5, grade 6, you were taught 10 millimeters, right? 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter. You also know that 1,000 millimeters is equal to 1 meter, and 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter. We also then know that 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. So we're going to recap that very quickly. 10 millimeters is 1 centimeter. 1,000 millimeters is obviously 1 meter, 100 centimeters in a meter, and 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So in order to look at the basic rules when it comes to conversions, we need to keep in mind what is the larger unit and what is the smaller unit. Okay, so when we look at these units, these units of measurements, we will tackle how do we move from a larger unit and how do we move to a smaller unit. Okay, so in other words, a centimeter is of course the larger unit compared to millimeters. Hence, because there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. A meter, we know, is larger than a centimeter. We also know it's larger than millimeters. And hence, a meter is the larger unit in this comparison over here between 1,000 millimeters and 1 meter. Once again, a meter is, of course, larger than a centimeter. And as you know, a kilometer is a larger unit of measurement than meters. Okay. Now, when we move into the general methodology over here, I'd like you to keep in mind, whenever we move from a big unit to a smaller unit, we will multiply. And if you're ever uncertain about this, right, a big unit to a smaller unit. So for example, I've got 5 meters, okay? I've got 5 meters. And I want you to convert that to centimeters. Well, you're going to say that 5 meters, right? And I must convert it to something in centimeters. So how do I get that to something in centimeters? Well, I need to look at how many meters are there in 1 meter. Oh, sorry, rather how many centimeters there are in 1 meter. So there are 100 centimeters in each meter. So I'm going to say, because I'm going from the larger unit, which is the meters, to the smaller unit, I must remember the rule of multiplying. Okay, so I'm going to say 5 meters times 100 times 100 centimeters is going to give me it's going to give me 500 centimeters. Okay, right. So make a note of that and remember the reference. Big unit to smaller unit, I must multiply. Okay. Righto. So let's move on quickly. So I just want to quickly mute the WhatsApp on this side. Okay, and there we go. So once again, big unit to a smaller unit means I should multiply. Now you can guess these bold letters over here, or these bold words, if I'm going to swap them around, I'm going to just interchange all of those things over there. So let's do that quickly. When I go from a smaller unit, on the other hand, to a larger unit, then I must essentially divide. Okay, smaller unit to a larger unit, I must divide. So here's an example. Once again, kilometers is larger than meters, meters is larger than centimeters, and centimeters is larger than millimeters. If I move from kilometers to meters, I use the idea that there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer, and then I determine, am I moving from kilometers to meters or meters to kilometers? So if I move from kilometers to meters, it's a larger unit to a smaller unit of measurement. Hence, I must multiply. If I'm going from meters to millimeters, there's 2 ways I can do this. I can either go directly from meters to centimeters and then to millimeters, or I can go from meters to millimeters, right? But now, once again, remember, this is the larger unit, and this over here is the smaller unit. So if I'm going from meters to millimeters, I can multiply by 100, then multiply by 10, which is exactly the same as multiplying by 1,000. Okay. So to sum up this slide, big unit to smaller unit, I'm going to multiply. From small unit to bigger unit, I'm going to divide. Okay. Let's just click there quickly and clear that. Let's just move forward. Okay. Then when we go from the smaller unit to the larger units, we will divide. Okay. If you remember the first rule, just remember you swap it around. Big change to small, small goes to bigger, and multiply changes to divide. Okay. Now, that was talking about conversions when we are looking at lengths, right? Or sorry, that was the general methodology, and we previously introduced lengths. On this slide, we're now going to look at volume, right? So when we talk about volume, we are essentially looking at things like capacity over here, and in this capacity, let's talk about milliliters to liters. Once again, let us identify what is the larger unit and what is the smaller unit. Well, there's more milliliters in a liter. Hence, a liter is the larger unit of measurement. Then, liters versus a kiloliter, and it will bill you in a tariff system that's going to be looking at kiloliters. So remember simply that a kiloliter is larger than a liter, And also a kiloliter contains 1,000 liters. The same general rules apply. When I move from a larger unit to a smaller unit, I must multiply. And when I move from a smaller unit to a larger unit, I must divide. Okay, these are examples. Because there are 1,000 liters in a kiloliter, if I am given 5 kiloliters, it should be easy enough to say, well, 5 kiloliters is equal to 5 multiplied by 1,000 liters. And there we go. Similarly, a conversion from liters to milliliters, you take the liters multiplied by 1,000, and you'll get the milliliter equivalent. Okay. Now, if you had to go from kiloliters to milliliters, you simply apply this twice. First go from there to there, which means you're multiplying by 1,000 by 1,000, and 1,000 thousands is a million. Okay. Then the reverse is also true. When we go from the smaller unit to the larger unit, remember the general rule. We will simply divide by the conversion factor. Okay. Carnita did mention if there's any comments, it will show up somewhere on my screen over here. So guys, please feel free to comment. If you're commenting on any of the live streams, if you have questions, please feel free to send them in over here. Okay. Now, the correct word here should not actually be weight, but we're going to leave it as such. But here we're really talking about mass. Okay. Once again, let us compare. Where do we use milligrams? Well, milligrams are often used in pharmaceutical products. Compare milligrams to grams. Milligrams is once again smaller than a gram. Okay. And there's 1,000 milligrams in a gram. There's 1,000 grams in a kilogram. And there's 1,000 kilograms in a ton. From ton to kilograms, multiply by 1,000. And once again, remember the general rule. Larger unit to smaller unit, I must multiply. Once again, kilograms is larger than grams, hence I must multiply again. If I'm going in the other direction, from a smaller unit to a larger unit, I'm going to divide. Grams to kilograms, I divide. Kilograms to tons, once again, I divide. Okay, so I'll leave that there for a moment. Make sure you've got it down. Make sure, and it's always good to write. I know I'm using slides. I generally prefer writing on the board or on the screen. But when you write down these things, it helps you engrave a neural pattern, okay? And if you're having trouble with this, remember, focus on the things that you're struggling with. So if you're making mistakes with conversions, please remember, work through them. It's called deliberate practice, right? Many times students only want to work on the things that they are good at. And yeah, that doesn't really help you because you need to practice the areas that need improvement, and that's the only way you're going to get better at it. Okay. Now, generally in the mathematical literacy examinations, everything you see over here with regards to moving from one system of measurement, i.e. the metric system to the imperial system, you will notice that those units are given, okay? Now, you can clearly see there will be more centimeters in 1 inch. Hence, an inch is a larger unit than centimeters, right? And here you can see, we're giving you the conversion factors. 1 centimeter is 0.397 inches, or similarly, 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, okay? 1 yard is less than a meter. 1 mile is more than a kilometer, right? Hence, 1 mile is larger than a kilometer, and 1 foot is 0.3048 meters. You don't need to memorize any of these because generally these are given to you in the examination questions. Okay, they are given in the examination questions. However, what is important here is to look at the differences between whether it is a larger unit and a smaller unit. So given that there's more centimeters in 1 inch, clearly an inch is a larger unit than centimeters. Hence, if I'm going from inches to centimeters, again, that's a bigger unit to a smaller unit, I'm going to multiply. The same principle applies. Larger unit to smaller unit. If I have 2 inches and I ask you to tell me what that is in centimeters, you're simply going to say it's 2 multiplied by 2.54. Hence, it's going to give me, what's that, 5.08 centimeters, right? Okay, so the only thing I want you to pay attention to on this slide is generally the conversion factors will be given to you. You need to know what system it relates to. It's the imperial system when we're talking about gallons, yards, feet, miles, etc., and inches. And in centimeters, meters, kilometers, and meters, we're talking about the metric system. The most important thing that you must take away from here is studying the conversion and identifying which unit is larger and which is the smaller unit. Once you have that down, you can easily convert. Either multiply from big to small, I multiply, and from small to big, I'm going to divide. Okay. When we look at conversions for cooking and baking, generally 1 cup is 250 milliliters, 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters, and 1 teaspoon is generally 5 milliliters. Sorry, 5 milliliters. Temperature conversions, you will generally be given the temperature in 1 unit of measurement, either Fahrenheit or Celsius, and you're generally also given the formula in which you have to substitute and simply convert. Now, I'm not going to give you any examples right away on this. It's merely to make you aware of the different conversions we are considering. We looked at cooking, we looked at the metric and imperial system, we looked at mass, and we also looked at lengths. And now we are looking at units of temperature, Fahrenheit and Celsius. Okay. Now, here's an excellent question. Now, one of the biggest challenges that I heard mathematical literacy students, or rather examiners' reports say students are not reading the questions correctly. Guys, it is mathematical literacy. Literacy relates to reading and obviously comprehension with that. The most important thing you need to do, which I also tell our physics students, in any strategy to answer the question, can anybody tell me? It's read the question. Okay? You need to read the question. So let's go to example 1 and let's be good students and let's read the question. So it says, Mary needs to measure the length of a sliding door to find out how much material she must buy to make a curtain. The curtain material costs 89.99 per meter on sale, sold only in half meters. Okay. So 2 things that's important here. Let's understand the question. She needs to measure the sliding door. The reason she's measuring it is she wants to know how much material she must buy. Okay. And then we also know the price of the material per meter. And also we know it's only sold in half meters. Okay. Before we continue, I just want to draw your attention. Remember, in a pure mathematics exam, they usually tell you to round off to 2 decimal places. In a physics exam, they tell you must round off to at least 3 decimal places. However, mathematical literacy is very different in the sense that the instruction when it comes to rounding is you must round off appropriately to the context. That means I must round off to the context, right? So if, for example, you're doing some kind of calculation and okay, we're going to see an example there in a moment, right? Let me go back to this one. When we're talking about money, it's important that you have 2 decimal places in the subject, because even though you might have 89 Rand, for example, 90 cents, 89.9, remember, 89.90 is exactly the same mathematically as 89.9. However, there's always 100 cents in a Rand. And when you're indicating price, you must have the unit of currency there, and you must have the total cents. So if, for example, and I know it's not 0.90 here, but if, for example, it was 89 Rand 90, then you must write down 89.90, right, in order to get that final mark. But nevertheless, let us go back to the question. Mary estimates the length of a sliding door to be 1.5 meters long using her arm. If Mary goes to the shop with this estimate, she used her arm, and now she wants to know how much material must she buy. Now, to accurately answer that, we know it's 1.5 meters. We're assuming also she's going to cover it exactly with that length. And then thirdly, we know that it's sold in half meters. So if it's sold in half meters, if you were to count in halves, You have half, 1, 1.5. Clearly, it's possible for her to buy 1.5 meters. Okay. Hence, the answer here is she needs to purchase 1.5 meters. Now, if, for example, it was only sold per meter, not half meters, but per meter, then she would need to buy 2 meters in order to cover 1.5 meters. And the reason for that is it's only sold in meters, right? In our example, on the other hand, this one is only sold in half meters. Hence, she is more than welcome to buy the exact amount. Okay, now how much would the material cost? It's simple, right? It's going to be 89.99, and at grade 12 level, remember in rands, multiplied by 1.5 is going to give me 134.99. Okay, so give us a like or share or a thumbs up over there if you're with me, and then we will move on. Okay, right. Now, continuing the question with Mary here. Mary needs to measure the length of a sliding door. We read that. To find out how much the material would cost. Okay, we've just duplicated the question there because we've changed slides. But now it's a follow-up. When we see that the question changes to 1.2 and it gives us some information, it means the situation is slightly changed. Mary decides to double-check her estimated measurement before she buys the material. And so, in this case, she decides to use a tape measure to accurately measure the length of the sliding door. She determines that the sliding door is actually 4.2 meters long. The first question, 1.2.1, says calculate the total length of the material in meters that she needs to buy. Now, once again, the context here is very, very important. We know that she can only purchase in half meters. The sliding door is 4.2 meters. Now, if we're going to count in halves, eventually we're going to end up at 4 meters. But it's not practical for Mary to purchase 4 meters of material for the simple reason that 4 meters is not going to cover the entire sliding door. But it's only sold in half meters, hence she would need to add another half meter to 4 meters to get to the solution there. Okay, so when asking students this question very recently, some said she needs to buy 9 half-meter lengths. Perfectly correct. Okay, 9 half-meter lengths, you need to tell us what that means. That's, of course, she needs to buy 4.5 meters of material. Okay, she can't buy 4 meters of material. She can't buy exactly 4.2 meters of material. The first one, 4 meters, she can't buy because it's not enough. 4.2 meters, she can't buy because it's only sold in half meters. Hence, she must buy 4.5 meters. Now, calculate the cost of the material. Once again, we're going to take this number here, 4.5 meters, and we're going to multiply it by 89 Rand 99 cents. And we're going to get a solution of 404 Rand and 96 cents. Okay. Now, the next question is a very, very interesting one, because once again, you need to know something about currency, you need to know something about the context, and you also need to know a little bit about what coins are in circulation in our country. Question 1.2.3 says, if she pays with 405 rands, how much change will she get and why would she get that amount? Okay, so strictly speaking, when you take a till slip at any of the major retailers, study the till slip. Somewhere on there, it's going to tell you something about rounding. And the rounding that it looks at, it either rounds up, it usually rounds down because they don't want to con anybody. And in this case, if she's going to pay cash, what's in circulation and what's not, right? 5 cents are no longer in circulation, or at least I don't believe they are. And so in all honesty, I barely ever work with cash. But 5 cents are not really in circulation, neither are 2 cents and 1 cent, right? So they can't round up here because then it's going to be 405 rands, and technically they're going to bill you 4 cents more. So usually the supermarket or the curtain shop in this case, will round down. And if they round down, it's going to be 404 rands and 90 cents. Okay? Hence, if we state it as rands, she's going to get 10 cents back, and that will be 0.10. Now, I know you guys know that 0.1 is exactly the same as 0.10, but because we're talking about money and mathematical literacy requires us to stipulate and give it to us relevant to the context, 10 cents will be represented as 0.10 rands. Okay, so we don't have 5 cents, 1 cent, and 2 cents circulating in our economy any longer. That is your solution. Once again, give us a thumbs up or a comment if you're with us and you're happy so far, and then we'll move on. Please feel free to share any questions also if there's any uncertainty at this point. Okay. Right. So over here, we're going to look at example number 2. Francis Mukhapanele Primary School has 2 classrooms. The 2 classrooms need to be sanitized. A 25-liter, and this should be a hyphenated word, container of sanitizer costs 575 rands. So that's 575.00. The school needs to buy 75 containers. Now, once again, a very simple calculation over here. Calculate the total cost of the sanitizers. Well, we need to buy 75. It's 575 rand each. And so now, remember, when you do this calculation, you must stipulate 575 multiplied, and it's 575 rands multiplied by 75. Okay, and that's going to be 43,125 rands and 0.00 if you wish to put it on, because then it would be 0 cents, right? Okay, now here comes the conversion question. The conversion question that we have over here is how many milliliters of sanitizer will they then buy in total? Now, you know that we've got 25-liter containers. We've got 75 of them. So you've got multiple ways of doing this. You can either convert the liters to milliliters already and then multiply it by 75. Alternatively, you can calculate how many liters we have and then take that answer and convert to milliliters. Now, before we continue, I want you to ask, besides the total, this is what we would consider it's a routine, maybe a little bit of a complex question because it's requiring multiple steps. I need to work out the total capacity or the total liters or milliliters that I need. Oh, sorry, the total liters that I need. And once I have that, I then need to work out what is that equivalent to in milliliters. Okay? So let's see. One solution is to take 75 times 25, and 75 times 25 is 1,875 liters. Okay? So I'm going to just 75 times 25 is 1,875. I'm just verifying all the calculations, and that one is correct. And as you know that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. Now the question wanted to know how many milliliters, and we were given liters. Hence, we were given a bigger unit. We were given liters. And we must go to milliliters. And we go back to our general rule over here. Milliliters to liters is big to small. From big to small, we must multiply. So we take the 1,875 liters, we multiply it by 1,000 milliliters, and we then have a solution of 1,875,000 milliliters. Okay, and of course, multiplying by 1,000 is a fairly simple calculation. Give us a thumbs up if you're all with us, and then we can move on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to example number 3. Okay, so this question has a little bit of a typo, and before we continue, let us fix the typo over here. This name should be Stefka. And this one over here should be Sotomayor. Okay, let us read the question. It is recorded that Javier Sotomayor of Cuba, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is the current men's record holder in long jump with a jump of 245 centimeters, where Stefka Kostadinova of Bulgaria is the women's record holder with a jump of 2,090 millimeters. Okay, now we can't really compare these things here, right? Because the units are different. When you compare things, they must be in an equal unit, okay? So the first thing that we have here, 3.1, it says determine with calculations who is the longest jumper between the two. Who is the longest jumper between the two? Now, guys, 2,090 millimeters each centimeter, 1 centimeter, write your conversion factor down, right? I don't think these conversion factors are given to you because, I mean, you've learned this in grade 5 and you should know this by now. 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. Okay. So if we ask the question, what's larger, what is smaller? Then again, a centimeter is larger than a millimeter. So if I go from centimeters to millimeters, in other words, big to small, I'm going to multiply. Or if I go from the smaller unit to the larger unit, I'm going to divide. Okay. Determine with calculations who is the longest jumper between the two. Well, it's fairly simple. I mean, I could do either or. If I'm going to look at Stefka's, right, then I'm going to take 2,090 millimeters, right? And I want to know what is that equal to in centimeters. Then I'm going to take that solution and I'm going to divide by 10. Right, because again, I'm going from millimeters to centimeters. It's a smaller unit to a larger unit, and smaller to larger is division, and larger to smaller is multiplication. Hence, if I divide by 10 over here, I'm going to get 209 centimeters. So 3.1's answer is fairly simple. 209 centimeters is very clearly less than 245 centimeters. Okay, hence, the first guy from Cuba, 3.1. 3.1 is the longest jumper. Now, I suppose it's good that we did the calculation based on Stefka over here, because over here the calculation is based on Sotomayor. Okay, to convert centimeters to millimeters, we know it's larger to smaller, we multiply. 245 times 10 is 2,450 millimeters, and hence 2,450 millimeters is more than 2,090 millimeters. So either of these calculations would have been relevant to answer this question. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Let's see what we have coming up. Okay, sorry, we still have 3.2 and 3.3. Calculate how many feet did Javier Sotomayor jump if 1 meter is 3.2808 feet. Now, clearly, there's more feet in 1 meter, right? There's more feet in 1 meter. I do apologize. I did something earlier. Let me just do that again for us. What I did was I said this question needs to be Stefka, and that's what I'm missing over there. And this one needs to be Sotomayor, just so that our solutions also make sense. Okay. Now, calculate how many feet, right, did Stefka jump if 1 meter is 3.208 feet. Okay. Now, once again, what I need you to remember is a meter contains 3.208 feet. Okay. So, just a second. Yeah. I need you to observe the following. When we started the question, we're talking about Stefka, right? The conversion unit that I'm given over here is a meter, and a meter contains 3.208 feet. So, sorry, 2808 feet. There's more feet in a meter, hence a meter is larger than feet, right? Or foot. And if a meter is larger than a foot, it's again going from a bigger to a smaller. But the question did not give me Stefka's distance that she jumped in meters. She was given the distance in millimeters. Now that distance in millimeters, guys, I need to first get the millimeters. Can you tell me to what? To meters. And once it's in meters, then I must get it to feet. So if you had to do this calculation with me, I'm going from millimeters, which is a smaller unit, right? A smaller unit to a larger unit, which is meters. From smaller to larger, I must divide, right? And then once I have how many meters it is, I'm going from meters to feet. But a meter is larger than a foot. So larger to smaller means I must multiply. So here's your solution for that. We start with the conversion of 2090 millimeters to meters. Hence, to convert from millimeters to meters, we divide by 1,000. That's saying we're moving from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. Once we've got that, we can see that 2090 millimeters is equal to 2.09 meters. Now, once you have 2.09 meters, going back to what we mentioned about the imperial system, I must go and I look and I study. 3 feet goes into 1 meter. Therefore, 1 meter is larger than 3 feet. So I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. So I must multiply by the conversion factor. And the conversion factor in that regard is going to be 2.09 meters multiplied by however many feet in 1 meter. And that's going to give me a solution of 6.86 feet. Remember, your unit must be there and you must clearly show us what you're doing. Okay, now we've got about 3 minutes left. In the last 3 minutes, what we'll be doing is we're going to take a quick look at question number 3.3. Calculate how many inches did Sotomayor jump if 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. Now, before we go into that, we go to Sotomayor. We know 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. This one's a little bit less complex. And the reason it's less complex is when we go to Sotomayor's record of 245 centimeters, it's already given in a unit that we can work with that is in our conversion factor over here. So now I'm clearly going to go from centimeters and I must go to inches. Now, an inch contains 2.54 centimeters. So think of it like this. There's more centimeters in 1 inch, hence 1 inch is larger than a centimeter. Now, if I'm going from centimeters, which is smaller or less than an inch, right? It's a smaller unit, okay? Because there's more in, I'm going from a smaller unit to a larger unit. I must usually divide. And so now we go and check. Javier Sotomayor jumped 245 centimeters. To convert from centimeters to inches, we must divide. And we divide by the conversion factor of 2.54 because it's a smaller unit to a larger unit. Okay, so we're going to take 245 centimeters, write this down, engrave the neural pattern, get used to it, divided by 2.54. And if we put that in 245 divided by 2.54, that's going to give us 96,45666, which if you round off is approximately equal to 96,46 inches. Okay. Right, so that brings us to example number 4, and I just want to check with Conita in studio over there. Conita, do we have time? I don't think we have time.
You have 2 minutes. Oh,
2
sorry,
minutes.
you have 2 minutes, yeah.
2 minutes, okay.
Well,
let's use the 2
counting
minutes.
down.
I don't think we'll work it out fully, but I think with this particular question, I'd like everybody just to take a screenshot, do it for homework for our next session. But what I'll quickly walk you through in the next 1 minute and 40 odd seconds, less than a minute now, is just look at the conversions, right? The strategy is which sugar tin is the most economical. Don't be thrown off by this word. When we say economical, all we mean is what's the cheapest, okay? And in order to determine what's the cheapest and not be conned in the store, you need to convert this to something of the same unit. So I would suggest work out the grams here, work out how many grams this is. And once you've done that, I think we can do this in the next lesson, is we will then calculate the rands per gram. In other words, the price per gram. And once we've got that, we're comparing, sugar granules in grams with grams, and we will easily be able to determine which sugar tin is the cheapest or the most economical. Thank you, Conita, and that is 3:50 p.m.
Wonderful, on point, and shukran for a very informative session. And again, to the viewers, do like and share these posts with anyone who can benefit. And we'll be back next week again, inshallah. I think tomorrow we'll be looking at tomorrow's Friday. We'll be covering religion studies with Fatima Adamson, inshallah. But we'll keep you posted on our social media with regards to this session, inshallah. But shukran, Imaad, for joining us today. And thanks to our viewers as well. We bid you farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.